The air in the antechamber hung heavy, saturated with the scents of cinnamon, cedarwood, and something acrid, like the breath before a storm. Each step echoed with the weight of ages, the silence amplifying the whisper of Carter's lantern flame. In this hushed cathedral of the dead, they stood at the precipice of eternity. Before them, the entrance to the burial chamber, sealed against the passage of time for over 3 millennia. It had resisted the relentless march of centuries, defying erosion and earthquake alike. But now it yielded, offering a glimpse into the heart of the labyrinth. As Carter stepped across the threshold, the air shifted, a subtle change in temperature wrapping around him like a shroud. The beam of his lantern trembled, dancing over the walls adorned with vivid hieroglyphs depicting scenes from the afterlife. The Eye of Ra, symbols of protection, stared back with inscrutable gazes. Everywhere, there were warnings, divine pronouncements that chilled the blood. One phrase repeated like a mantra: "The property of Ra is not to be violated." A fine layer of dust coated everything, undisturbed for countless years, and in the stillness, they could hear the rasp of eternity, the slow, steady drip of unseen water echoing in the vast emptiness. In the flickering light, they saw him, the boy king, entombed in a golden sarcophagus, his eternal slumber undisturbed for so long. Now here he was, confronted by these living on the sarcophagus lid, the pharaoh's youthful features were frozen in an eternal sneer. Was it amusement, disdain, or perhaps menace that played on his lips? His gaze, empty and fathomless, stared into the abyss, mirroring the darkness that threatened to consume them. Around the sarcophagus, there was a scattering of artifacts, each imbued with power, each whispering tales of forgotten magic. There were amulets, shaped like scarabs, their jewels glinting in the dim light. There were staffs topped with the heads of venomous snakes, their eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. And there were tablets bearing cryptic inscriptions, their words lost to the sands of time, their meaning forever buried. As Carter moved closer, the room seemed to hold its breath, as if the very walls were watching, waiting for some cataclysmic event to shatter the fragile barrier between worlds. He reached out a hand, his fingers trembling, and brushed aside a fold of linen, revealing an inscription that made the blood run cold. The text, written in hieratic script, was a warning, a prophecy of doom for those who dared disturb the king's eternal rest. Carter felt a chill crawl up his spine, but he stood his ground, his determination a flickering flame in the suffocating darkness. Hours melted away like wax in the stifling heat, replaced by an eerie twilight. With every passing moment, the atmosphere grew more oppressive, the air thickening with unseen menace. Outside, the desert wind howled, whipping sand against the sealed entrance, as if the spirits of the valley were enraged, their voices echoing in the mournful moan of the wind. As the last sliver of daylight surrendered to the relentless night, the team stumbled back, leaving behind the treasures and terrors of the inner chamber. They emerged blinking into the star-studded expanse, the familiar landscape of the valley transformed into a menacing silhouette under the cold, unblinking eyes of the heavens. Back in the safety of the camp, huddled around a sputtering lantern, they shared stories to stave off the encroaching darkness. The legends of the Pharaoh's curse, once dismissed as superstitious tales, now took on a life of their own, weaving a tapestry of fear that was impossible to unravel. Each creak of the tent, each rustle of the wind through the dunes, seemed to carry the echo of those ominous warnings, amplifying the sense of impending doom. Sleep offered no respite, replaced by haunted dreams of mummies, their eyes glowing in the darkness, their hands clawing at the edges of eternity. Even the desert night, usually a canvas of infinite peace, was now a menacing presence, teeming with unseen dangers and whispering threats in the language of the sands. With the rising sun, hope returned, dispelling the shadows of the night, or so they thought, for the valley had its secrets, its own sinister script that unfolded not in hieroglyphs, but in the cruel hand of fate. Back at the dig, the team found their progress halted. Carter's shovel struck not clay, but solid stone. as if an invisible hand had sealed the entrance to the burial chamber overnight. Panic tightened its grip, transforming the once familiar sight into a labyrinth of despair. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, mingling with the sweet fragrance of exotic flowers, and from the depths of the earth there came a sound, a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the bowels of the valley itself. Days turned into weeks, and the relentless heat of the desert mirrored the growing tension among the team. Supplies dwindled, forcing them to confront the harsh reality of their isolation. The towering cliffs seemed to close in, turning the valley into a furnace, baking their hopes and dreams until they were as brittle as papyrus. Then the unthinkable happened. Lord Carnarvon, driven by a potent mix of curiosity and desperation, decided to consult a medium. In the flickering light of the tent, surrounded by the relics of their dig, they awaited the arrival of the spirit world. The medium, a gaunt figure with eyes that burned with otherworldly knowledge, began his, summoning the spirits with strange incantations. The air grew heavy, charged with an otherworldly energy. Then from the swirling mists of the tent, a voice emerged, raspy and weak, like the echo of a forgotten memory. It was the voice of the Pharaoh, or so they believed, commanding them to halt their intrusion, to relinquish their claims on his final resting place. In the face of such blatant supernatural interference, reason fled, leaving only blind faith and primal fear. Carter, his spirit broken, finally yielded, agreeing to seal the dig and abandon their quest. But the valley had its own plans, its own tragic script that played out in the lives of men. As the team prepared to leave, disaster struck. Lord Carnarvon, stricken by a sudden and inexplicable illness, collapsed, his heart, it seemed, overwhelmed by the weight of his transgression. Despite the frantic efforts of the medics, he was gone, his life force joining the eternal slumber of the pharaohs. Grief and guilt intertwined, choking the life out of their expedition. They buried Carnarvon hastily, the ceremony truncated by their haste and horror, and they fled the valley as if it were cursed, which perhaps it was. The whispers followed them, echoing in the chambers of their hearts. Was this the vengeance of the Pharaoh, the retribution for daring to disturb his eternal rest? Or were these misfortunes mere coincidences, the cruel whims of fate masquerading as supernatural retribution? In the end, they could never be sure. The valley had claimed its own, and now it loomed in the distance, silent, victorious, its secret safe in its bosom. Years later, back in the hallowed halls of academia, Carter would recount the tale, his voice hoarse with the weight of memories. He would describe the oppressive silence of the burial chamber, the unearthly chill that seeped into their bones, the haunting murals that seemed to mock their hubris, and he would speak of the curse, not as a mere legend, but as a specter that haunted his waking hours, the specter of human arrogance in the face of the eternal. As he spoke, the audience leaned in, eager for the next chilling detail. They laughed at his quips, gasped at his descriptions, their faces pale with reflected horror, but they never truly believed him, dismissing his fears as the ravings of a man obsessed. Only he knew the truth, a truth more terrifying than any fiction, that some doors are best left unopened, some tombs undisturbed, some secrets buried deep in the sands of time. The valley was his undoing, stealing his sanity and his soul, yet he couldn't help but yearn for it, for the whispers of the wind through the dunes carried the echoes of eternity, and he, Howard Carter, was forever bound to it. The curse's whisper grew to a roar as the tomb yielded its treasures, artifacts gleaming with an otherworldly allure that masked their malevolent power. Golden masks etched with spells, canopic jars holding organs infused with protective poisons, amulets said to summon plagues upon thieves. Carter catalogued them in the stifling heat, his brow furrowed with triumph and trepidation, his scientific mind warring with the eerie coincidences unfolding. A black cat, sacred to Bastet, slinked through the camp and vanished. Soon after, Lord Carnarvon's canary was found dead, its throat crushed by a cobra that had slunk from the shadows like a guardian serpent awakened. Carnarvon himself, his health already a fragile thing, laughed off the omen as superstition. Yet those same eyes that dismissed the curse saw the fevered dreams that plagued his nights, the mummified hands clutching at his throat, squeezing the breath from his lungs. The burial chamber held more wonders and woes. In one chamber, they found 3 sarcophagi made of red granite, each inscribed with the image of Anubis, the guide of souls. But it was the canopic jars that truly captivated Carter. Each jar was ornately decorated with the human head, each face different and each face bearing a strange resemblance to someone within the team. As Carter reached out to examine them, a chill ran down his spine. The lids clicked, not audibly, but with a sickening certainty that sent shivers down his spine. Inside, they found the preserved organs of the Pharaoh's court, some floating in foul-scented liquids, others desiccated and withered. The sight both fascinated and repelled him. Could these relics hold the key to the curse, or were they merely macabre remnants of a bygone era? Then there were the Ushapti, small statuettes inscribed with protective spells, meant to serve as servants for the deceased in the afterlife. Carter could almost hear their whispers echoing across the millennia, promising retribution for any who disturbed their slumber. And then his gaze fell upon something even more disturbing. Etched into the stone was a depiction of a winged creature, part human, part bird, holding a scepter topped with a cobra. This was not just any god. It was Imhotep, the embodiment of death and decay, the harbinger of plagues. Carter's heart sank as he realized the full implications of their discovery. They had not merely stumbled upon an ancient tomb. They had awakened a sleeping evil. As weeks turned into months, the discoveries continued. Golden funerary masks with empty sockets where eyes should be, their gazes eternally lost to the sands of time. Each mask seemed to stare directly at him, their silent accusations echoing in his dreams. Carter uncovered a series of tablets covered in hieroglyphics that detailed the making of the so-called plague god amulet, said to be able to call forth pestilence with a mere utterance. As he traced the faded ink, he felt a presence watching him, a cold, calculating intelligence that sent goosebumps prickling across his skin. The amulet itself lay hidden in a secret chamber, buried deep within the tomb, guarded by traps and puzzles that tested the limits of both their courage and ingenuity. When Carter finally pried open the chest containing the amulet, a swarm of flies erupted into the air, their buzzing a menacing chorus. And when he pulled the amulet free, the air grew heavy with the scent of decay. Meanwhile, Lord Carnarvon's health took a turn for the worse. He began suffering from debilitating cramps, and his usually ruddy complexion turned sallow and grey. Rumors spread through the camp that the curse was taking its first victim, and fear became a constant companion. Carter, however, remained resolute. He would not let this ancient curse defeat him. He would uncover its secrets and break its hold over them once and for all. But as the days passed and Carnarvon's condition worsened, Carter knew he might be fighting a losing battle. The curse was real, and it had its sights set on him next. In the stifling heat of the Egyptian night, Carter tossed restlessly in his tent, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. Dreams of mummies with glowing eyes haunted his sleep, their decaying fingers scratching at his skin, trying to drag him down into the darkness. With a gasp, he bolted upright, his heart pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of decay and dust. As dawn broke, Carter stumbled out of his tent, his face drawn and haggard. The others noticed his gaunt appearance, but none dared ask questions. They, too, had been tormented by dreams of the undead, and their waking hours were spent in a haze of fear and fatigue. Since their intrusion into the burial chamber, the atmosphere had grown thick with dread. The tomb, once a place of discovery, had become a prison of their own making. Carter felt a heavy responsibility settle upon him. If he couldn't find a way to stop the curse, they would all die here in the shadow of the pyramids. But what could he do? The only way out was through, and the path ahead was fraught with peril. Still, he knew he had no choice. They had trespassed into the realm of the dead, and now he had to find a way to appease the vengeful spirits they had awakened. As the curse tightened its grip on the expedition, Carter found himself racing against time, desperately searching for a solution before the darkness consumed them all. Meanwhile, rumors of the curse's wrath spread like wildfire, turning the discovery of the century into a race against death. Carter's investigation led him to the royal treasury, where he discovered an ancient text describing the creation of the plague god amulet. According to the inscription, the amulet was crafted using the heart of a particularly virulent cobra, imbuing it with deadly powers. Could this be the source of the curse, he wondered? Was there a way to destroy the amulet without unleashing its full force upon them? Carter shared his findings with the group, and they hatched a plan. They would return to the burial chamber and attempt to destroy the amulet using fire. It was a risky move, but it was their only hope. As they prepared for their final confrontation with the curse, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing a deadly game of cat and mouse. The closer they got to the amulet, the stronger the curse seemed to become. Their supplies dwindled, their bodies weakened, and their minds frayed from lack of sleep. Each night they huddled together in the flickering lamplight, sharing stories of home and loved ones, knowing that their time was running out. Then the unthinkable happened. Lord Carnarvon's canary, which had been missing for days, was found dead in his tent, its tiny body contorted in a silent scream. But the most disturbing part was the wound on its neck, a single puncture mark that mirrored the bite on Tutankhamun's mummy. Had the spirit of the Pharaoh's curse claimed another victim? Fear coiled around the team's hearts, tightening its grip until it was hard to breathe. The atmosphere grew so heavy with dread that even the bravest among them began to falter. Some spoke in hushed tones of turning back, of abandoning the dig and fleeing the Valley of the Kings. But Carter refused to give in. He owed it to Carnarvon, to his own curiosity, and to the countless explorers who had risked and lost their lives seeking such treasures to see it through. Finally, the day came when they stood before the burial chamber once more. Armed with a shovel and a lantern, Carter stepped inside. The air grew cold and still, and he could feel the weight of countless eyes boring into his back. As his hand trembled, reaching for the matchstick, the silence was shattered. There was a loud crash, followed by Lord Carnarvon's panicked voice echoing through the tomb. Without hesitation, Carter rushed to the entrance, his heart pounding in his chest. What had happened? Was it the spirit of the tomb? Was it the curse? What have they awakened? He raced forward, fueled by adrenaline and terror, the thought of losing his companion driving him onward. As he rounded the corner, he saw a sight that made his blood run cold. The burial chamber was empty. The sarcophagus lay overturned, its contents scattered on the ground. And in the center stood Lord Carnarvon, his face pale as death, his eyes wide with terror. "I didn't mean to," Carnarvon stammered, his voice shaking. "I didn't know." But Carter wasn't listening. His gaze was fixed on the wound on Carnarvon's arm, a mosquito bite that mirrored Tutankhamun's injury. It was clear that the curse had claimed its second victim, and Carter knew that he was next. As the realization dawned on him, a chill swept through him, colder than the depths of the tomb. He had unleashed something ancient and malevolent into the world, something that craved not just revenge, but dominion. Now the curse was spreading, growing stronger with each passing moment, and he was its unwitting accomplice. In a desperate bid to escape the curse's clutches, Carter fled into the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the pyramids, pursued by the relentless specter of death. As he stumbled through the darkness, he could hear the echo of his own doom drawing ever closer, each step a countdown to his inevitable demise. Would he find a way to break the curse, or would he join the Pharaoh in his eternal slumber? This is the horrifying story of the Valley of the King's curse. The year is 1922, and a British archaeologist named Howard Carter has just made the discovery of a lifetime. In the small town of Luxor, Egypt, he's just uncovered the entrance to the tomb of the boy King Tutankhamun. But soon he and his team find themselves fighting against time, racing against the elements and their own mortality to uncover the secrets within. As they delve deeper into this labyrinth, something malevolent stirs, awakened from its slumber. Soon, the team begins suffering strange and terrible afflictions, seemingly linked to the tomb itself. Are these misfortunes merely coincidences, or is there a sinister force at play? But first things first, let's start at the beginning. The Valley of the Kings was a burial ground for Egypt's most powerful, a place steeped in mystery and intrigue. The air grows heavy with anticipation as Carter descends into the darkness, each step echoing with the footsteps of Pharaoh's past. Then suddenly, light pierces the gloom. Before him lies the magnificent sarcophagus of Tutankhamun, the boy king whose untimely demise had shrouded him in enigma. It was a moment that would echo through time. With bated breath, Carter gently touches the sarcophagus, unknowingly setting in motion a chain of events that will blur the line between the living and the dead. As news of the discovery spreads, the world is captivated. But little do they know, the tomb holds secrets that should remain undisturbed. For as the saying goes, some doors are best left unopened, some relics better left untouched. Little did they know they were about to unleash a curse that would haunt them for years to come. In the days that followed, visitors flocked to see the tomb. Among them, George J. Gould, an American millionaire, an avid collector of all things Egyptian. Touched by an inexplicable urge, he reached out, caressed the cold marble, and in doing so, unwittingly sealed his fate. Just days later, he was dead, succumbing to pneumonia in a London hotel. His body convulsed as if in an ancient ritual, his skin ashen as if mummified, a chilling spectacle that sent shockwaves through the medical community. Was it mere coincidence, or had the tomb's touch reached across continents to claim another victim? The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered and unsettling. Lady Almina Carnarvon, wife of the late Lord Carnarvon, was next. She had been a pivotal force behind the funding of Carter's excavations. Now driven by a mix of grief, determination, and perhaps a touch of obsession, she returned to the tomb, hoping to uncover more of her husband's story. But as she brushed aside centuries of dust, she unwittingly stirred up more than just history. A terrible illness struck, and she found herself wasting away in her silk sheets, her elegant form succumbing to blood poisoning. Her final moments were filled with terrifying whispers of winged demons, adding a layer of horror to this already macabre tale. Amidst this grim tableau, Ahmed's descendants spoke in hushed tones of a curse upon the valley. Their fears echoed through the ages, passed down in stories around flickering oil lamp. They told tales of how anyone who disturbed the pharaoh's eternal rest would face dire consequences, a warning that fell on deaf ears. The villagers began avoiding the area, shrouding the valley in an even deeper layer of mystery and fear. Crops withered under a strange blight, and children were born bearing markings like the scarab's burn. Amidst this mounting dread, Father Remy, a member of the Dominican order, arrived with a simple mission: unearth the truth behind these chilling tales. He delved deep into the scriptures, searching for answers in ancient texts. His findings, when pieced together, painted a grim picture. What he uncovered was suppressed, locked away in monastery vaults, hidden from the prying eyes of the world. But one monk, Brother Luke, could not resist the allure of the forbidden knowledge. Driven by an insatiable thirst for the truth, Brother Luke embarked on a perilous journey into the heart of the Valley of the Kings. In a forgotten Vatican vault, he discovered the suppressed records of Father Remy's investigations. As he pored over the ancient texts and cryptic notes, a horrifying reality began to unfold. Each page he turned revealed more supernatural affliction, death and despair, all linked to the Valley of the Kings. His faith, once a guiding light, began to crumble, replaced by mounting dread. As he grappled with these terrifying revelations, his mind fractured under the weight of the pharaoh's supposed vengeance. Eventually, he was confined to a cell, his cries of anguish echoing through the halls, raving of vengeful pharaohs and plagues from beyond the grave. His tragic fate served as a stark reminder. Some truths are too terrible to be uncovered, some doors too dreadful to be opened. Yet amidst this darkness, the tomb's allure remained, drawing in the curious and the desperate. But what truly lies within the confines of this ancient burial chamber? Is it the spirit of an angry pharaoh seeking retribution, a malevolent force guarding its master's eternal slumber, or something else entirely? Meanwhile, Carter himself, the man who had unwittingly unleashed this horror, met his end in relative obscurity. In 1939, he breathed his last in his apartment, surrounded by artifacts that seemed to mock his mortality with their eternal silence. Doctors were baffled by his lingering illness, a slow decay that mirrored the tomb's own ageless decay. Was it the curse claiming another victim, or merely a cruel twist of fate? Decades passed, yet the whispers of the curse refused to fade. Explorers and scientists returned to the Valley of the Kings, eager to unravel its mysteries. Among them was Zahi Hawass, a renowned Egyptian archaeologist and former Minister of State for Antiquities Affairs. Even in modern times, he and his team experienced eerie occurrences that defied rational explanation. As they delved deeper into the tomb, their equipment would suddenly fail, succumbing to cold gusts of wind that chilled the very bones. They spoke of shadowy figures glimpsed in the empty chambers, remnants of the past lingering in the present. And when they brought certain artifacts to the surface, plagues of bad luck and illness seemed to follow. Scientific probes revealed the presence of Aspergillus fungus in the tomb, a natural toxin that mimicked many of the symptoms attributed to the curse. Yet despite these rational explanations, whispers of the supernatural persisted, weaving a chilling narrative that continues to captivate and terrify in equal measure. One artifact stood out, the Mask of Tutankhamun, a relic that seemed to hold a special kind of darkness. Visitors reported fainting before it, as if overwhelmed by an unseen presence. Guards recounted hearing footsteps in the empty halls at night, a haunting serenade that chilled them to the core. But the most compelling account came from the discovery of Brother Lutz's journals after his death. His ink-smeared pages detailed not only his descent into madness, but also the terrifying visions he experienced. He wrote of spectral plagues, ghostly processions, and the specter of the Pharaoh himself, all converging on the unsuspecting explorers, drawn by some dark, irresistible force. And so the story of the Valley of the Kings continues to echo through the corridors of time. Is it a cautionary tale? A warning to those who dare disturb the eternal slumber of the past? Or is there a darker truth lurking beneath the sands of Egypt? A truth that science and reason cannot touch? In the tapestry of human curiosity and ambition, the tale of Carter and the curse of the Pharaoh stands out as a chilling reminder. It serves as a metaphor for the human condition, our insatiable desire to explore the unknown, often leading us to the brink of catastrophe. The Valley of the Kings, with its crumbling tombs and lingering shadows, becomes a symbol of the abyss that lies beneath our relentless pursuit of knowledge and power. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb was undoubtedly a monumental event, a testament to human ingenuity and the allure of the past, but the subsequent events serve as a stark reminder of the hubris that can accompany our triumphs. As we marvel at the achievements of explorers like Carter, we must also acknowledge the darkness that can lurk at the edge of our brightest discoveries. The curse, whether real or imagined, becomes a metaphor for the dangers of unchecked ambition, the fine line between progress and peril. The Valley of the Kings, with its shifting sands and whispering tombs, becomes a microcosm of this struggle, a place where the boundaries between the physical and supernatural blur. The story's enduring legacy lies in its ability to tap into our deepest fears and fascinations. The thought of vengeful spirits lying dormant beneath the desert sands, waiting to be disturbed, sends shivers down our spines. It speaks to our primal anxieties about the fragility of life and the thin veil separating the living from the dead. Moreover, the curse's ambiguity adds to its chilling effect. We are left to wonder about the nature of the tomb's power, whether it's a product of superstition, psychological torment, or something more sinister. This ambiguity invites us to confront our own beliefs and the limits of human understanding. The Valley of the King's curse, therefore, transcends the realm of a simple horror story. It becomes a reflection of our own mortality, a reminder of the forces beyond our control, and a cautionary tale about the perils of unchecked ambition. It challenges us to consider the ethical boundaries of exploration and the respect we owe to the mysteries of the past. In the end, the curse's true power lies in its ability to evoke the unknown and the unknowable, leaving us to grapple with the unsettling questions it raises long after we've finished the tale.